Hello YouTube, welcome to CJ's Movie Reviews. Haven't done one of these in like over a year, but I saw a couple movies recently and I really wanted to talk about them because I thought they were both really good. So, the most recent movie that I saw was The Lighthouse, which I know is a pretty old movie at this point. It came out back in 2019. But I enjoyed it a lot, and it's all kind of shot in like black and white, which is pretty interesting. It's a very like eerie movie to watch. The whole, actually, it's probably pretty relevant with Halloween coming up. The whole tone of the movie is just incredibly like eerie and creepy, and but it's done like really well. And funnily enough, that's not even to say that there's no like comedy or anything like that to it that you can enjoy. Like, sorry, I'm just moving where the my view of the camera is. But there's some sort of comedic aspects to this movie. Willem Dafoe, who I'll fully admit, an actor I really like, probably one of the other reasons I've wanted to see this movie for a while. But Willem Dafoe plays this character who, funnily enough, he sounds like he's talking like a pirate almost all the time, which sounds silly, but he does it in a way that it's, I don't know, he's very consistent with it, and his character feels totally believable. But it kind of makes some aspects of the movie feel a little funny. But basically, the premise of this movie is there's two guys who are basically meant to be the sort of caretakers of keeping this lighthouse up and running, and just everything on this very small island that the lighthouse is on up and running. And they have to stay on this island for 4 weeks before someone will essentially come get them, and presumably, I guess, different people will go there for a while. However, this is mild spoilers, maybe. About halfway through the movie, they realize that, you know, the day they were supposed to leave came and went, and nobody picked them up, and there's massive storms. So it doesn't seem like anyone's going to pick them up for a while. And so they're just kind of stuck on this island, dealing with each other, and just having to be on this small island with very shitty weather, which, like, it doesn't sound that creepy on its own, but there's a lot of these, like, nightmare sequences. Like, the main character frequently has nightmares about mermaids, which, again, I realize this doesn't sound that scary, but the movie makes them a lot creepier than they would be, you know, because mermaids were originally meant to actually be a creepy type of monster that, like, lures people to their doom. And that's very much, you know, what you see in this guy's nightmares is, there's, like, these mermaids who show up and they have these horrifying, very unsettling screams. Yeah. And the other main part of the movie is basically these two characters. These two characters have a strange relationship because they seemingly keep going from, like, loving each other to hating each other so much that they want to kill each other. And in the movie, there's a good scene in the movie that kind of exemplifies it, where these two characters, like, they almost look like they're going in for, like, a kiss. And then they start, like, biting each other. Because they're, you know, if you're on a small island, it's kind of a psychological thriller in a lot of ways. Because if you're stuck on a small island with, like, one other person, you're just gonna go nuts. And these two characters, their personalities clash a lot. So the older guy, played by Willem Dafoe, is basically the other guy's boss. And he's kind of a huge asshole. Like, he keeps telling him to scrub the floors multiple times over, even after he already did it twice. And he has him carry this massive metal container for, like, oil for the lighthouse light all the way up the lighthouse stairs, before he finally revealed, once he got to the top of the stairs, that actually there was an easier way to carry it the whole time. So yeah, these characters just kind of start driving each other nuts. But there's also, like, scenes where these characters kind of connect with each other in some strange ways. Like, they get drunk with each other, and there's kind of a funny argument in the movie where they argue about Willem Dafoe's cooking, like, or the character that Willem Dafoe plays. Both of these characters' names are, like, the same also, which is weird. Like, I think in the original script for the movie, these characters are differentiated as one of them is literally just called Young, and the other one's called Old. And Old is Willem Dafoe's character. Unfortunately, I'm actually blanking on the name of the actor who plays the other guy, but he was really good. Anyways. But yeah, there's a funny scene in this movie where Young and Old, I'm gonna say, are both having a sort of argument about Old's cooking, and he wants the other guy to admit that he likes his lobster at the very least, or something, you know. And, you know, a lot of these arguments that kind of start off seeming silly, I don't know, it's like they compound on each other, and the characters get more paranoid about each other. Like, they start noticing weird behaviors that the other person's doing. So there's, like, a sense that they don't always trust each other, and you don't know to what extent you can trust them, because, you know, they're both on this island. They're both getting, like, increasingly paranoid after being stuck on this island for over a month. And you know, the paranoia is getting to them, and I feel like some people, like, one thing I hear people complain a lot with, like, movies that are shot in black and white, like this one is that black and white, you know, the black and white is just a gimmick or something. But I would say for this movie, the way everything was lighted in the movie kind of added to the eerie, creepy feeling of everything. Like, just, I don't know, it creates a much more, like, creepy and oppressive and just sort of miserable type of atmosphere for you to kind of understand what these characters are going through when you see, like, when you see these characters dealing with everything, and you see it, you know, everything's, like, grayed out. So everything just, like, looks as miserable as, like, the characters are often feeling on this island. The movie gets very strange and artsy towards the end, which when I say strange, I don't mean that in, like, a bad way. I think it's pretty interesting, but I don't, admittedly, I don't really know how to talk about it other than to say there's a lot of this film has a lot of interesting ideas that are difficult to explain. But overall, I would say that this movie is really, really good. Everything it's trying to do, it does really, really well. The acting is phenomenal from both characters. It's probably one of the best performances I've seen by Willem Dafoe, honestly. Yeah, it's a truly fascinating movie, and I would probably give it, I think originally I was thinking a 7, but honestly, the more I think about it, the better I would say it is. So I would ultimately give it like an 8 out of 10. The next movie that I want to talk about, which, funnily enough, also was shot in black and white, is the movie Hundreds of Beavers. The black and white is used in this movie to very different, but still equally good effect, in my opinion, compared to how the Lighthouse uses its black and white sort of way of shooting, which is instead of creating this sort of oppressive, like depressing atmosphere, everything's still black and white, but everything's still like a fair bit brighter, and you get the sense from this movie, like this whole movie, it is live action, but this whole movie gives a sense that you're like watching a very old school cartoon. Like it feels very Looney Tunes-esque. Because the whole movie it's a slapstick movie about this guy called Jean Kayak, who sells Acme Applejack. Because he has this whole farm which creates Applejack, which basically is just like a very, very strong type of hard cider that was popular during like the I guess like the colonial era that I believe this movie sort of takes place in. So, you know, there's all these hunters and stuff hunting animals and trading animal pelts for other things, and that's exactly what the main character has to do. He has to, because his Applejack farm gets destroyed by beavers, and he doesn't even realize it's happening because he's drunk as this is happening. But his entire Applejack farm... I'm sorry, there's a plane going over my house right now, and it's a little distracting. There's an Shit, what was I saying? Yeah, Applejack farm. It's destroyed by beavers, so he basically has to become what's called like a fur trapper, which basically just means someone who traps animals and then sells their pelts. You know, he struggles a lot to do this. Like, there's a lot of scenes in the movie of him just trying to catch, like, you know, smaller animals, like birds and stuff, just for food. Because he after his farm's destroyed, he has no food. But he, like, you know, there's like a scene where he gets close to some eggs and he does like the wolf whistle. And every time he does it, he gets pecked in the face by, like, this cartoony, like, woodpecker. You know, the whole film is low budget, and it does show, but that's not even necessarily a bad thing, because the movie, it kind of uses all of its low budget sort of charm to its advantage, in a sense. Like, this... You know, because it emphasizes a lot of the comedy of the movie when you see, you know, all the beavers and most of the other animals they're all either puppets or just straight up people in, like, beaver costumes. Like, all the beavers are just people in beaver costumes, and every time he manages to get a beaver, you know, these other two beavers show up wearing like detective uniforms. The people who made the movie even made like a drinking game out of it, where, you know, they'll say like, you know, take a drink every time Jean Kayak falls in a hole, or take a drink every time the beavers investigate a murder, which it's pretty funny that they did that for their own movie. You know, they know exactly what kind of movie they made, and one of my favorite jokes with regard hit my mic there. One of my favorite jokes with regard to like the movie kind of almost making fun of its own cheapness is there's like, you know, people are at one point in the movie gonna ride this horse, but the camera just zooms in on the horse, and you could clearly see like a very bored looking dude's face like in the horse costume. And it's so funny. It's so funny how it does all of this. The sound design is incredible. There's like points where the mic kind of peaks, but like it always feels intentional. Basically, there's a lot of stuff in this movie that you could, you know, I could see some people calling it a so bad it's good movie, but that doesn't really feel right to me, because the movie feels very self-aware about all of it. Like, you know, you know, it's a slapstick comedy movie. Everything is just supposed to be very silly. There's also like a lot of sort of video game inspiration, I think, taken for this movie. Like, there's a scene where he makes a loud noise, and then you see like an exclamation mark on all of these bunnies' heads as they're hearing him yelling, and they're all getting like alerted and then running off, which, you know, feels like the kind of thing that would happen in a video game. And then there's a whole ending sequence where he's trying to get 100 beaver pelts, as the movie's name would imply. You know, because he, this merchant that he's been buying things from in exchange for the pelts, you know, he has a crush on his daughter, and the merchant says like, you can marry my daughter if you bring me hundreds of beavers. So that's what he does at the end, and you know, he's going through this huge beaver dam, but this beaver dam is like, it's like ridiculous. It feels like a boss area in like a video game, where, you know, these beavers have just set up this super complex society within this dam that they've built. And you know, as he's going through it, there's you know, he has to fight the beavers, and there's a lot of like video gamey sort of effects. There's a scene where you know, seemingly the beavers capture him, and but then he sees like a human enter the room, and he's like, oh my god, I'm saved. There's another hunter here. But the human looking guy pulls off a mask, and it's actually just a beaver. So yeah, it's a very absurdist sort of comedic movie. But there's so many jokes. There's so many jokes, like every second. Like, if you don't get one joke, the movie will immediately move on, and there'll be another joke, and you will not get bored watching this movie. The only major criticisms I would have is, as much as I mostly like the sound design of this movie, there's like a song that the movie opens on, and it's a great sounding song for the most part, but it kind of drives me crazy, the fact that like, you can't quite understand all the lyrics. Like, I understand most of them, I think, but you can't quite understand all the lyrics, and so I kind of wanted to see what it was like with subtitles. And everywhere I can find subtitles, it's like, these subtitles are obviously wrong, or AI generated or something, where like, you know, I just want there to be a version of the song from the beginning of the movie with subtitles, which I believe this song is called John Kayak's Acme Applejack. But everywhere I find subtitles for it, they're like shitty and wrong, and like that includes on Tubi. Like, I don't know if Tubi, like, AI generates their subtitles or what, but like they clearly are not correct, at least for the musical part. For the rest of the movie, honestly, I turned the subtitles off after the opening, so I can't totally speak for it. But I mean, it's not that it matters that much, because there's very, very little dialogue in the movie, for the most part anyways. It's mostly just the characters making funny sounds when they get hurt. Like, you know, like you would expect in a lot of older cartoons. And then one of the few times the main character speaks, it's censored, because he's just saying, "Oh, shit!" And then the shit is, like, censored. After he realizes something has gone, like, horribly wrong with one of his traps. But yeah, this movie is also really, really good. It's probably one of my favorite comedies I've seen in a long time. And I think I would give this one a 9 out of 10. Like, it's not a perfect movie, but every flaw that it has is kind of also an advantage to it at the same time. So, you know, everything works really, really well, in my opinion. But, yeah, with that being said, that's what I thought of these movies. And, you know, hopefully I'll try not to wait as long next time before making another movie review. I haven't done this in, like, over a year. But, you know, yeah, I love these movies a lot. I highly recommend both of them. So watch them if you can. One of the things I'm, like, most upset about is, like, nobody I know other than some people online have watched either of these movies. So part of why I wanted to make this video is I'm just like, I have no one to talk about these movies with, but they're so good. So, like, yeah, anyway, highly, highly recommend these movies. Yeah, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, and I will see you in the next video that I make, whenever that may be. You know, probably not gonna wait a whole nother year. So don't worry about that. I'm gonna try and be a little more frequent. But yeah. See ya.